restructuring by giving a 10-year grace period to African nations in distress as he addresses the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York.
Public Service Boss Felix Koskei orders immediate halt to foreign or domestic travel for civil servants and directs government officers to hold their retreats within Nairobi amid claims of wastage and misuse of public funds.
Across the borders, a primary school in Pretoria, South Africa, forced to call in medics after discovering that over 90 pupils had eaten muffins laced with cannabis that they had bought from a street vendor.
That's what we call the perfect definition of a high school. Good morning and welcome to this edition of Morning Cafe this lovely Friday, 22nd of September 2023. How hot is the coffee where you are? Mine is quite hot here. On the youth perspective today, Anthony Manyara, President KUSO, Rachael Tabitha, National Youth Advocate, Asab Cheruiyot, lawyer and analyst, and Honorable Esther Rongo, nominated MCA in Murang'a County Assembly. Do stand by for that conversation on the youth perspective. My name is Freddy Ndemuli.
I'm used to Stanley Nyarungita. For this particular week, we've been marking International Week for the Deaf. And this particular morning, we'll be having quite an interesting gentleman. He's a deaf musician, and he calls himself the first ever deaf musician in East and Central Africa, basically, by the name Lal Dagi. And obviously, Bansi will be coming along, our cue for the weekend, obviously.
Once you see Bansi around, you know, the weekend, imefika.
And obviously, taking a look at the whole top trends, what has been happening this particular week. But then to our top story this morning.
Yes, let's take a look at the top story now. And I'm trying to find my top story. And it appears it's disappeared. It was somewhere here. But let's take a look at the diary first, then we'll come back to the top story.
All right. But then,
I found it.
Good.
So the head of public service, Felix Koskei, has ordered for immediate stoppage of unjustified foreign or domestic travel and directed all government officers to hold their retreats within the capital, Nairobi. During a meeting with all principal secretaries and chairs of departments on Thursday, Koskei cited meetings away from offices and in luxurious hotels as one of the avenues of wastage of public funds. His directive comes just a day after the Control of Budget released a report that exposed wastage in government as billions of shillings are paid to government workers as allowances and air tickets. In the report, over the last 9 months alone, the government spent 20.37 billion shillings on travel, with domestic travel gobbling 14 billion shillings and 6.3 billion shillings going into foreign travel. Let's take a look at the diary first before we go to the dailies.
Oh, yes. And in today's diary, 3 key things to have your eyes on today. Matters the LGBTQ plus furor and the leadership of Jamia Mosque and Nairobi set to address the recent Supreme Court ruling regarding the LGBTQ plus rights. Someone will shed light on the religious standpoint and beliefs, underscoring on unwavering dedication to preserving traditional values and teachings. That is here in Nairobi. Another key bit here, realization of the 2/3 gender rule and the multi-sectoral working group on the realization of this 2/3 gender principle will be making oral presentations to the National Dialogue Committee during a stakeholder engagement meeting today at the Bomas of Kenya. And actually still on the Bomas of Kenya, expect to see more talks being held as they continue by both political parties. Yesterday there was a standpoint on some contentious issues, so we do expect to see how that will be going on today. In matters banking, Family Bank will today roll out a new product offering tailored for women to drive financial inclusion and gender empowerment. This offering will provide financial and non-financial benefits to women for sustainable development. But then even as we're crossing to the dailies this morning, Fred, I can see actually the whole talks here on different dailies. But then our question this morning relating to what we'll be discussing, Fred will be discussing on matters of the youth perspective. And this morning we're asking you, are Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to employment opportunities? Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to employment opportunities? Social handles at TV47 News, that is on X, at TV47KE on Facebook, and __ on X, and at Fred Indimuli. He says, yake haina underscore.
Yeah, kuna
underscore. Okay, now on the dailies, let's start with the Standard this morning.
Okay. On the Standard, matters politics. Okay, Stanley, you can go.
Right, on the Standard this morning, Ruto, Raila caught in succession fight, and goes on to say the matters stormy waters. President and ODM leader have been forced to wade into supremacy battles on who wears regional shoes, and the fights are getting ugly. More on page 6. And on the top strip there, KUSO to civil servants. Stop deals, go on leave. So head of public service Felix KUSO says some public servants are deliberately not going on leave to maintain the corruption networks in government. Interesting. That is on page 8. And on page 7, not all ports, coast leaders warn Ruto. There's also a special report there with the auditor. Country ill prepared for flooding disaster. So you'll get more of this on page 14. And with El Nino rains looming, a report by the Auditor General shows the disaster response system is fraught with inadequacies. And more on page 13. On the back page, big man there at Manchester United, there is Onana. Onana takes blame for Man United loss at Bayern. Well, I feel like he did play well, if you ask the fans. But the others who should have really taken that blame. So Red Devils suffered a 4-3 defeat in the Champions League match on Wednesday. The goalkeeper blames himself for gifting Bayern the opener. Well, that definitely should be blaming himself. We wait to see on that. And also, Fred, on the front page of Daily Nation, now, the whole matters talks here. We're going to say,
Nation,
yeah.
This Friday, big headline there, talks team in near fisticuffs. Very, very interesting headline on the Daily Nation this Friday. Kenya Kwanza rejected Azimio's make or break interim demands. A stormy session, ongoing negotiations between President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga to resolve the 2022 post-election crisis yesterday degenerated into a shouting match which almost broke into a fist fight.
That's
major split between the warring camps.
That is on page 4 of it. And on the bottom strip there, marking the 10th anniversary of Westgate Mall of a terrorist attack. On page 12, Private Security Regulatory Authority Director General, that is Fazul Mohammed, pins a newly rolled out badge in Jackson Guy's uniform at Westgate Mall in Nairobi yesterday during the 10th anniversary of the 10th terror attack. And on the right, those pictures there, security guards lay flowers in remembrance of the victims. On the right strip of Daily Nation, matters health, and they're telling you why NHIF workers may have to reapply for jobs. So employees of the National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, will have to reapply for jobs and be recruited on merit to serve the new fund that will phase out the 57-year-old state corporation. The Social Health Insurance Bill 2023, which seeks to dissolve the NHIF and create a social health authority to manage 3 funds, states in its transitional clauses that the new authority will take over all NHIF assets but will only absorb its staff on a merit basis. They also quote what the bill is saying. Below there, matters corruption. Waititu is a former Kiambu governor and wife have a case to answer.
Interesting discussions there.
Yeah. And matters fallout. What is happening in Meru? Kawira's light, or Hamwangaza, seems to be dimming.
Oh yeah, this fallout has really lasted for quite a while. The story is on page 22. On the back page of the Daily Nation this Friday, TSC rejects proposals on education reforms. The TSC boss claims their views to the task force were neither considered nor acknowledged in the final report. Ms. Manyara says the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms report puts TSC at odds with the Ministry of Education. And remember, this is one of the discussions we had. We've been having this all week, the kind of confusion around education and matters reforms, matters curriculum, and the general lack of clarity on how we're moving forward in all education issues. All post-teacher training and capacity building initiatives will be coordinated by TSC in accordance with the Employment Act. This is a assertion by the TSC boss, Nancy Macharia. Another story there on the back page of the Daily Nation this Friday. UK-Kenya sign High Grand Falls Dam agreement. Plans to build a multi-billion shilling High Grand Falls Dam, a flagship project conceived 10 years ago, have kicked off in earnest after the government formally signed the first agreement with the British construction firm, which won the contract. And it's going to be expansive, 165 square kilometers that will be covered by the main reservoir in the High Grand Falls Dam. Interesting. That's the story on the back page of the Daily Nation this Friday.
All right.
Let's move on to other dailies today. Which one do you have there?
I can have, I see the Star here, and the Star goes with pressure to fire, Ruto to face UDA top brass, so NGC to meet next week, and amid push for President to overhaul his executive. More that is on page 4 and also page 5. Well, insert they have some pictorials there of the Westgate anniversary. Top flight security as Kenya marks 10th anniversary. But then again, yesterday, Moiga William, our very own, did a spot check in different supermarkets around Nairobi, just to see how Kenya is actually prepared for any some of these attacks. Walking inside a supermarket, just holding a bag, but then now do the security there really inspect you, or they just frisk you so that you just pass. It
would appear that 10 years on after that Westgate attack, our security alertness has lowered somewhat. An issue of concern there.
Oh yes. Other headlines making it through the Star this morning: family of Kenyan killed by police in US to get 125 million Kenyan shillings. That is on the right side. And others, lack of oxygen. Why was our son killed in jail? Family seeks for answers. And also health ministry and counties partner in El Nino response. And finally, in the top strip there, Nairobi among 3 counties exposed for potential fraud. Well, makes sense. I mean, a number of some of this ESCC cases we do here, a number of Nairobi county officials amid some of this corruption and graft cases, where is the problem there really? That is on the Star this morning, Fred.
Okay, before we get to the People Daily, let me take a look at Taifa Leo. Kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo Ijumaa hii, habari kuu pale, ukatili wa mke mwenza. Katika eneo la Kachiliba, kaunti ya Pokot Magharibi, wanamsaka mwanamke aliolewa hivi majuzi ambaye anadaiwa kuwateketeza watoto watatu wa wake wenza Jumapili usiku. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili, ukatili wa mke mwenza. Wakazi waduazwa na kisa cha mwanamke kuwafungia watoto wa wake wenza kwa nyumba na kuwachoma. Habari zingine ambazo zimepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, pale chini, KMTC ndoto ya wanachuo yazimwa. Wanafunzi walioteuliwa kusomea kosi za afya KMTC hawajafuzu kusomea kosi hizo, imebainika kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Kwingineko, mwaliko wa mwinjilisti wazua gumzo. Wakenya watoa maoni mseto kuhusu hatua ya mama taifa kumwalika mhubiri Benihin nchini. Ukurasa wa 3 habari hiyo. Kwingineko, mabilioni yatengezwa Morocco. Yatengewa Morocco. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, TSC yakataa mapendekezo ya jopo la rais. Afisa mkuu mtendaji asema mawasiliano yao na jopo kazi yalipuuzwa.
Kidokezo kingine tunaweza kukisahau tukisonga mbele.
Ni Ijumaa, so lazima tuangazie. Kidokezo hichi ni muhimu zaidi. Kilio Manu, Arsenal ikipiga sherehe tu. It's a Friday start.
Ni habari ambayo wana Kiingereza wanasema.
I not even noticed this one. But anyway, it's been given quite some prominence there on the front page of Taifa Leo. Kilio Manu. Kilio Manu. Tulia, Stanley.
This is still news.
Stanley. Tulia. Kilio Manu, Arsenal ikipiga sherehe tu. Onana abeba msalaba kwa matokeo duni ya Manchester United. Habari hiyo kwenye ukurasa wa 20 imeangaziwa kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Umuhimu wa habari. Unajua vidokezo vinavyopata nafasi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele ni vidokezo muhimu. Na kidokezo hichi cha kilio cha Manchester United ni muhimu zaidi.
Well, the good thing is, you know, Arsenal has been suffering for years on end.
Kilio. Do you have the People Daily?
I don't have the People Daily. I don't have PD, but I have BD.
Okay.
You can take a look at Money Matters here first, before you take a look at other things. On the Business Daily, mega project in finances face tax break suspension. And other just onset there is matters. Treasury fallback plan revealed in IMF disclosures. And also Chinese lenders are likely to take the biggest hit. On the bottom strip there, boost for bank as car buyers flock to auction yards. And on the ticker that is on the right side of Business Daily, Kenya's fuel prices 12th highest in Africa. So Kenya now has the 12th costliest fuel in Africa, following the recent price review that increased pump charges by up to 21.32 Kenyan shillings per litre. But if you go to Ruiru, things are different. And group founders to build a 3 billion shillings hospital, and also shilling tipped to weaken further on low forex. And on their pullout on Matters Life, Karo speaks on the strength of a woman. And on Matters Intelligence, corrupt elites prefer systems where you can operate without a trail. A Creole accounting leaves a transparent audit trail. That is a quote there by Joined Kisero on page 9. That is on Business Daily this morning.
Okay, let's move on to the People Daily now. And on the People Daily, the big headline this Friday, leave us alone. TSC tells Munavu. This is that feud between the TSC and the Presidential Working Party on education reforms. Teachers' employer wants National Assembly to throw out recommendations of task force on education review on recruitment, promotions and training of tutors. Says it is against the law. The story is on page 4. And Macharia says that recommendation has the effect of restricting employment opportunities for teachers and altering the registration requirements. Must be a big feud, this one, seeing that it's been given prominence on quite a number of dailies this morning.
Oh, yes.
Yes. The other big story on the front page of the People Daily today, KUSO reads riot act to civil servants. The story is on page 2. This is in reference to the head of public service restraining or restricting travel for public servants outside the country and even within our borders, saying that their retreats should be held in Nairobi. Other highlights on the front page of the People Daily: debt crisis jitters as $2 billion Eurobond set to mature. The unease has been further exacerbated by conflicting statements from key state officials on plans to retire the bond. That story is on page 17. And on pages 8 and 9, healed Westgate terror attack survivors recount ordeal. That's from yesterday's 10-year anniversary of the Westgate attack, 21st September 2013. And that's the front page of the People Daily this Friday.
And that marks the end of a review on Kenya's dailies.
Yes.
I can cross over to Uganda, Kampala, and on Daily Monitor, the front page, they tell you how to protect your land from grabbers. So safeguards crime involving land has been growing seeds of discord across the country in recent years. That is according to police reports. Yet some go unreported. Now government officials, lawyers and experts have revealed what you need to do to avoid falling victim of the growing fraud. More on page 4 and 5. And on matters Uganda politics, FDC chaos, Amuriat Nandala take their turn in leadership battle. On the left strip, government plans pre-entry exams for medical interns. And matters security there, 2 people killed, property destroyed in Kasese storm, and also a 5,700 actually war debt claimants not on compensation list. On the bottom scroll there, in yellow, over 17 million workers have no social protection, says NSSF, the Uganda NSSF. And finally, the top page there, or the top strip, opportunities at Uganda National Oil Company, Uganda Retirement Benefits Regulatory Authority. Hapo ni Kampala.
Okay, tuvuke boda sasa twende Tanzania, kule Bongo. Gazeti la Mwananchi, habari kuu pale, it's a very busy front page on the Mwananchi this Friday. Wow. Anyway, I can pick out the top story. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi kule Tanzania, kizungumkuti cha toto afya, kadi kila kona. Wadau wapaza sauti wakikosoa uamuzi wa serikali kwa kukosesha mamilioni ya watoto bima ya afya, waeleza njia ya kumaliza tatizo. NHIF afafanua kinachoendelea. When you talk about NHIF, this is the NHIF version in Tanzania. Habari zingine zinazopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele Mwananchi Tanzania, mali zilizokamatwa zinavyouzwa bei che, ni katika mnada wa polisi. Gari namba C nauzwa 60,000, laptop 2,000. Vidokezo vingine, giza nene, mwanamke aliyedaiwa kujinyonga maabusu ya polisi. Kwingineko, fanya hivi kuepuka maumivu makali ya uti wa mgongo. Na pale juu kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, serikali Fatma Karume mwendo wa kunyukana. Kwingineko, MV Mapinduzi 2 sasa yarejesha matumaini. And that's the front page of Mwananchi in Tanzania this morning.
And on the sister page, The Citizen, government Canadian miner to settle case out of court. The Tanzanian government and Canada's Windshare Gold Corp have reached a conditional settlement regarding the expropriation of the S&P Gold project. It's about $130 million. This is the claimant was originally claiming compensation of that money. That's about 250 billion Tanzanian shillings for unlawful expropriation of a mineral resource facility in southwest Tanzania. The highlights making it to The Citizen: Tanzania's democratic reforms get US attention, and TMDA warns against misuse of emergency contraceptives. Next week, but there will be World Contraceptive Day, if I'm not wrong. Another interesting conversation here, taking a look at Africa's culture when it comes to contraceptives. And on the bottom scroll there, in blue, PM calls for expedited auctioning for exploration, of exploration blocks. And the top strip, Malawian travel influencer shows how African youth can explore Tanzania. More reasons I need to be in Tanzania by the end of this year.
Oh well. Let's come back na tuangazie masuala ya karakacha sasa. Tukiangazia magazeti hapa nyumbani, the Daily Nation and Daily Nation, the Standard and the People Daily. Let's start off with the Daily Nation.
That's on page 18.
Page 18 of the Daily Nation, we have a very dark cartoon there. Mm-hmm. And yes, we do have it there. It would appear that this leader of an African nation has gone to assist some country in the Caribbean to sweep or to clean up the place, but his bucket is already has holes, yeah. And the mop and brushes are already done. They've seen better days. I think this is just a reflection of what Kenya's promise to send police to Haiti to help them. Mm-hmm. Kenya's police force is not exactly, let's say it has, the service has enough challenges back home already.
Oh, yes.
So to expect them to go and help Haiti, it's the irony of it all that is captured in that cartoon on page 18 of the Daily Nation today.
Oh yes, some sentiments made during the United Nations General Assembly concerning Haiti and sending a contingent there. By that,
we will definitely receive some applause for it, but yeah. Hey, what does it mean? In Kenya, we already have issues. How come we're sending police to Haiti?
Oh yes. I'm reminded yesterday the conversation you're having, and Wakili Ndego, mentioning also the same, mm-hmm. that instead of actually sending about 1,000 police there, should also take a look at matters back home. And on the Standard this morning, I think matters going with some international news here. Gentlemen, they're asking what is our opinion to win international support on this war? Well, scratching the head, and why don't you put together some millions of pounds and buy a Premier League club?
Interesting. There were quite a number of owners of Premier League clubs from areas where, especially like Russia. Mm-hmm. Remember, I think the immediate former owner of Chelsea, yeah. was a Russian oligarch. Mm-hmm. And quite a number of Arabian countries, Chinese, mm-hmm. Own Premier League clubs as well. Probably. It just goes to show how even matter sports and this kind of trade, this kind of investments across borders plays into the international politics as well.
Oh yes.
Let's go to the People Daily and look at their cartoon on page 10. This one makes reference to UDA in Mount Kenya. And it shows a boat with two people rowing in opposite directions, the mountain in between, with an explosive just about to go off. And the boat that's rowing in different directions already has cracks right in the middle. And people who look like the Deputy President, caricatures of the Deputy President, and CS for Industrialization, Trade and Investments, Moses Kuria there. Interesting. I think I like the trajectory that the cartoons on the People Daily have been taking this week.
Yesterday's was quite interesting. Today I'm loving it. Stano
they really captured the mood or the discussions. Gado on the Standard, going international. This is Stano on People Daily. And on the Nation, it should be?
Vendes?
We'll try and find out who's been working on the cartoons on the People Daily.
Oh, yes. Just a reminder again on our question of the day this particular morning. Are Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to matters employment opportunities? Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to matters employment opportunities? You can always be part of this conversation. Chime in at TV47 News, that is on X, at TV47 KE on Facebook.
Yes, and keep that in mind even as we get into the youth perspective discussion after the break. I remember, as I mentioned earlier, our panelists this morning, Anthony Manyara, President KUSO, Rachael Tabitha, National Youth Advocate, Asab Cheruiyot, lawyer and analyst, and Honorable Esther Irungu, nominated MCA. So do stand by for that conversation coming to you right after this following short break. You're watching Morning Cafe. Well, good morning and welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We now want to get into the youth perspective. But before that, a quick reminder of our top story this morning. Head of Public Service Felix Koskei has ordered for the immediate stoppage of unjustified foreign or domestic travel and directed all government offices to hold their retreats within the capital, Nairobi. During a meeting with all principal secretaries and chairs of departments on Thursday, Koskei cited meetings away from offices and in luxurious hotels as one of the avenues of wastage of public funds. His directive comes just a day after the Control of Budget released a report that exposed wastage in government as billions of shillings are paid to government workers as allowances and air tickets. In the report, over the last 9 months alone, the government spent 20.37 billion shillings on travel, with domestic travel gobbling 14 billion and foreign travel taking 6.3 billion shillings. Also, a quick reminder of our question today. Are Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to employment opportunities? You can continue interacting with us on our social media pages at TV47 News on X and TV47 Kenya on Facebook, and kindly share your feedback to that question, and we'll hopefully get to sample your responses as we continue with this podcast. Already in studio is Asab Cheruiyot, a lawyer and analyst. Good morning, Asab. Karibu sana.
Good morning to you and the people watching.
Yes, it's good to have you in studio for the youth perspective. We hope that more panelists will make it to studio. We're still expecting Anthony Manyara, President KUSO, and Rachael Tabitha, National Youth Advocate, to come in. Now, we want to focus on matters youth. And this whole week, a number of things have happened. Earlier this week, we saw images, videos, and pictures of what is happening in Embakasi, at the Embakasi garrison, where thousands of youth turned out looking for, seeking recruitment into the military. Over 7,000 reportedly showed up for the recruitment, and only 350 jobs were available. And it was said that many of those who showed up for the recruitment were fresh graduates from the National Youth Service. Now, watching that, or looking at those images, what is your assessment of the issue?
Maybe first, allow me to start by saying, right now for the youth of Kenya, we know things are tougher. They're getting tough. But there is a say in my community which goes that at times, in life things get tough before it gets better. We know this government is new, the new government, that is the Kenya Kwanza government, has and promised us, the youth, and we had a charter, a signed charter, that they will fight for the youths in terms of job creation and job opportunities. It is all within the realm of the vicissitudes of life that things, they might not look good as it stands now, because a number of youths are not employed. And when it comes to the jobs, especially for the KDF, that is what you mentioned, you find that the National Youth, that is the National Youth Service, since its conception way back in the 80s, it has given us many graduates, and to the fact that you saw a number of them fighting for those 300 slots, it shows you that the various regimes which has been there had not strategized well for the youths who are coming out of the National Youth Council to get the employment.
But surely, Asab, it is 1 year since President William Ruto took over. Listening to you, you're still calling it a new administration.
Yes.
You're talking about previous regimes. Kenyan youth are living today. They're looking at the current president, the current administration. When we keep going back to the previous regime, are we really doing them justice?
for you to give direction forward, you must, look back where you come from. And when I see where we've come from is the results of what we have now. So my point was that, right now, the government is trying, and when you see it gave a cohort 6 that is for the internships of the financial year 2023-2024. They are employing 20,000 youths for the internships position, and they just gave us the cohort 6, which is taking 8,000 youths right now, and that is part of the promises they made. A government is new. I hear, barely a year in office and doing, much of what we're seeing in the Hustler Fund. They said they're giving youths a chance to get capital for them to work, for them to do businesses, and there are circles which are given money through the Hustler Fund. It's not all about jobs being, white-collar job. It's about creating employment to many youths who are unemployed. The fact that a number of unemployed youths are out there. It's a fact. I cannot refute that. But working on getting employment for them, it's a good side. Which is being shown by the current regime, that is the Kenya Kwanza government.
And you talked about the charter that the president signed with the youth sometime in June last year, before the elections. One of the pledges there that there was going to be legislation of tax incentives to ensure young Kenyans gain skills from foreign companies operating in the country. Have we seen any of this? Because we do understand that the tax regime has become tougher, which some argue could even stifle foreign direct investments into this country.
Let me say my heart, goes out to from the onset. My heart goes out to the fellow youths out there, because of the hardships which has been visited to them, and especially when it comes to the taxation. But perhaps, every government has that, mandate of taxing. That is what the president actually likes saying, I have a mandate to press on the taxation, but for the good of for the prosperity of the government, we must admit that we need to give or to pay tax. When it comes to foreign direct investment, I think the president is doing good out there. Even the trips he's been going around, trying to brand Kenya as a new center of businesses when it comes to the international global brand, And I saw many business entities trying to get to Kenya, many global firms. You saw Bill Gates once he came here, and some of the richest people coming to see to try to invest in Kenya. Even if we have those taxations, which has been raised, by this regime, I still see a hope for the investors who are coming in, showing interest in Kenya, unlike before.
And still on that issue of taxation, because the other promise in that youth charter was a minimum taxable profit benefit for the youth, or businesses run by or what we call youth-owned businesses, to boost their operations and to help them retain more capital so that not all of this money goes to government. It's a form of tax incentive directed at youth-owned businesses. And because Kenyans currently are suffering across board. And many Kenyan youth will be asking, what happened to that promise? We've not really had, because the first budget by this Kenya Kwanza administration was passed a few months back, and there was not really any direct incentive for youth-owned businesses as promised. Is it something that they should probably wait for the next budgetary cycle, or what do you think? Do you still have confidence that this administration will deliver on some of these promises?
Apparently, we have hits and misses, of course. But the hits supersedes the misses. I would admit that some things have not run the way this Kenya Kwanza team, that is our team, had promised to the Kenyans. But we are hopeful that we are working towards delivering the plan. When it comes to the hardships, as I mentioned earlier, some hardships are brought by the international economic crisis, for example, the fuel pricing, which the Kenya Kwanza administration is not to blame. And it is because some factors are beyond even our government control. And I think some things, once the Kenya Kwanza government get to the office, there is that outcry globally on the economic crisis, on the cost of living day in, day out is rising, drastically. So to my argument, for the record, I'll say, we have some misses, of course.
Some things will have to wait.
Some things we have to.
What about the access to government procurement opportunities, AGPO? Because the promise was to issue free certificates to the youth so that they may be eligible for this special preferential treatment when it comes to access to government procurement opportunities. Because allocation of 30% of government procurement opportunities for the youth, this is something that we cannot blame on global forces. This is something really that the government is able to do locally. We've not seen that as well. Are you saying this is something else we have to wait?
I'll put it this way, for you in Kenya to register a company, that is a limited company or an enterprise, it costs around 15,000 for you to register a company. The 30% youth slice, or the youth sector in the public procurement, that is the policy which was put in place, still remains. I've seen many government parastatals like the KenGen in their portal, because you can even go or Google that right away in your phone. It's having in that domain or in their website. It's having a sector or a selection when it comes to women, youth, and a different slot on the national. So the youth percentage is 30%. And when they tender out tenders, there are a percentage which remains on the youth only. It is reserved for the youth. And I know it applies across all other parastatals, even when you check the KPA. So to my argument on that, I think we have that in place. We have that in place. Okay. Because even when you check on the counties are given 30% to the youth. Do you know anyone, or yourself probably, who has benefited directly from this? Are you aware of anyone? Once I mentioned that when you check in the website of KenGen, for example, which I can show you right away, is that it has a slot and it is having live tenders and open tenders reserved for the youth.
Okay.
And that is perhaps that is the 30%, which I think it's unless you bring another comparative study, but to my to my argument or where I stand, I know the 30% policy is there for the youth, unless the youths are not coming out to take the chances.
Okay, that is also a question, because and the question we're asking this morning is the Kenyan youth, let me just get the wording correct, is a Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to employment opportunities? Because the reason why we're asking this is that those 7,000 plus youth who showed up for the military recruitment at Embakasi Garrison are people who've gone through the NYS system. Therefore, they've already gained some skills which are through the training at NYS, things like plumbing, woodwork, metalwork, welding, and stuff like that. Yet they believe, or they seem to believe, that only recruitment into the military could make meaningful employment to them. Does this mean that we are choosy? Because this government has insisted on aligning itself towards TVET, vocational training, TVETs, more hands-on skills. But are the youth really interested in that kind of pursuit?
Yeah. That's a good question, because I believe, being a youth, I have the experience out there. We normally interact with many youths, and when I was in the university, we were promised that you get in a job of what you pursue. Like if you're a lawyer, you will be there doing the legal litigations out there. If you're a doctor, if you're a nurse or a teacher, you'll directly get an employment. So to the disadvantage of the current youths, there are no employments in the market. So then we were brought up in a system, or we were indoctrinated into a white-collar job system, where we just wait on the employment to get a salary. You just have to sit there and wait for the salary.
So your answer to this question is yes? My
answer to that question is yes, because the opportunities out there, that is in the agriculture, in the skilled labor, like the carpentry, they're not taken, they're not impressed by the youth or the current youth, because we were indoctrinated into a system where you just have to sit in an office for you to earn. Now, when this regime or this Kenya Kwanza government is talking about the TVET system, they want to indoctrinate youth that, look, you can just go to school, acquire skill, go back and try to use your skill to create employment and employ other youths. For example, if youths, especially in the rural areas, can take the chance of the agriculture, to venture into the agriculture or agribusiness, or just do the agriculture. In the areas.
What will change this kind of attitude? Because if at all so many Kenyan youth are reluctant to go into agriculture, for example, which is said to be the backbone of this economy, if we are not interested in doing what this country depends on, mostly agriculture, then how else will we be able to sustain this economy?
It is at some point I thought it was hard, because in the rural areas, myself, I was born and raised in Joro constituency, just a vicinity of Mao Forest. And when I got to the university, I knew that this is my chance to go to the city.
To live
the rural area and go to the city and study and live there, and walk around there. So all the youths, they have this perspective in life that, for you to make, you have to be within the city or within the urban areas, which I think it is a U-turn right now, because we need to venture or to take some things to the rural areas for for the government to embrace the rural works, then that is why the new the Kenya Kwanza government is talking about the agricultural. There is what we call the industrial parks. They are doing industrial parks in many counties. The plan is to have agricultural, these industrial parks in each and every county. And for example, I can take the Nakuru County. They have strategized on having agricultural and the industrial park in Njoro near Egerton University. And that is a remote area. It is not within Nakuru city. It is there in the rural place, so that it creates employment for the youth, and it encourages youth that, look, you don't have to be in the city for you to earn a living, or for you to change your family, or for you to make it in life.
Do you think that that communication is getting to the youth, that we're doing this at this level, kindly now leave the cities, go back to mashinani, and probably get into agriculture?
I believe we need to create awareness when it comes to that.
You, for example, Asab, you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
There exists opportunities in Njoro. You say your home is next to Mao Forest. Very interesting opportunities there to get into agriculture. Would you be willing? Because now you say Nakuru has put up some industrial park and that could benefit people who are involved in agriculture in that area. Would you be willing to go back to Njoro and engage in farming business?
Absolutely. Myself, for your information, I vied for the MP Njoro constituency in just concluded 2023 elections, because I wanted to get back to my area, that is where I was born, and make some changes, helping the leadership of the area. And myself, I'm a small farmer back in Njoro.
Okay.
In as much as I'm here in Nairobi, I practice farming in Njoro. So I would encourage each and every youth that, look, opportunities are there. But we need to grab them.
Okay.
Yeah.
A quick reminder of our question we are asking this morning: are Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to employment opportunities? Continue engaging with us on our social media pages at TV47 News on X and TV47 Kenya on Facebook. We're just about to take a break. When we come back, our other panelists will be joining us for this conversation. And that is Anthony Manyara, President KUSO, and Rachael Tabitha, National Youth Advocate. Do stand by for that. You're watching Morning Cafe. comes to employment opportunities? Are Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to employment opportunities? Continue interacting with us on our social media pages, TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Now, as promised, our panel has grown bigger. Just before the break, we had Asab Cheruiyot, lawyer and analyst, is still on the panel. Now joining us, during this panel, Rachael Tabitha, National Youth Advocate. Good to have you in studio this morning. Karibu sana. We also have Anthony Manyara, the President, Kenyatta University Students Association. Kenya University Students Association. Organization. KUSO. Kenya University Students Organization. KUSO. Yes. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Just before the break, Asab and I were talking much, and we started off with the background from what we saw earlier in the week with that video at Embakasi garrison with about 7,000 youth turning up for employment, seeking military recruitment, where only about 350 slots were available. Now, and the question is, same question we're asking today, are Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to employment opportunities? Because the understanding is that a majority of this youth had gone through the NYS system, meaning they had already obtained some levels of skills that are needed or are marketable to some extent in this economy. Yet they believed that recruitment into the military was the only natural progression for them, and hence our question. So let's start from there before we even move to something else. Rachael, are Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to job employment opportunities?
Thank you so much for having me this morning. A Kenyan youth has a right to be too choosy, if that's what they'd refer to be like when you need something that you deserve. A Kenyan youth has a right to access to good to access to jobs. It's their right to access good health care and all that. So when they are choosy, instead of the government or another person claiming that they are choosy, it's upon them to understand why they are choosy. Because I believe unemployment and underemployment is the reason as to why they are choosy. Because you see, someone could be a graduate, but then because there are no jobs for what they qualify to do. So they have to be maybe choosy to do something decent. Dignity for the youth is something very crucial. So they could be choosy for a reason. So before we rule out the reason as to why they are choosy, we need to understand why they are choosy. I believe they are choosy for a reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Anthony, in the prevailing economic times, can we really afford to be that choosy?
Well, first of all, let me begin by saluting and greeting all the comrades across the country, the more than 5 million students pursuing degree courses, pursuing a PhD, pursuing masters, all these students also in TVETs, colleges and polytechnics. Let me also, in the same breath, of course, say that in Kenya, unemployment has been a very, very big issue. Not just today, not just yesterday. I think the only issue that we have now is to seek for solutions on what we need to do so that we can be able to solve those issues. Yeah, of course, every Kenyan saw very many thousands of people to almost look like a political crowd, or rather a rally. Very many people looking for 350 slots of NYS. That is very unfortunate because in this country, where we are headed, looking at the UDA manifesto that was there last year, even Azimio itself had almost similar manifesto, which was quite progressive, indicating that they will create job opportunities for very many young people in the country. Actually, not even young people. Mm-hmm. You realize that there are some people who are clocking even 40 without a job. Mm-hmm. So, where I see it as the president of Kenya University Students Organization, representing very many students in the country, people who are studying hard to graduate, yet they don't know where they're headed next after graduation. As we speak, in the University of Nairobi, we are having a graduation, whereby very many students will be released out there to look for jobs. Whatever we saw with NYS is just a tip of an iceberg. It shows the kind of desperation that's amongst the youth. If you look at Vision 2030, if you look at Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, the 17 of them, if you look at Agenda 2063 of the African Union, even the spirit of our own constitution, 2010 constitution, it indicates that Kenyans deserve a quality, decent life, whereby you're not supposed to be a beggar, you're supposed to afford, of course, the basics, you're supposed also to live well. Now, I'll just blame the government, simply because we have not seen enough structures which should be able to empower young people to create jobs. Normally, in the student space, we normally say you cannot pickpocket a naked man. Sometimes it is not possible to expect much from a country that is already doesn't have even those job opportunities. How do you create? You empower things like manufacturing sector, industrialization. You know, you offer incentives to companies, private companies. You see how even government parastatals, agencies can be so much welcoming. They do paid internships. They provide avenues for young people to get jobs. Now, when Uhuru Kenyatta was the president, he initiated these issues to do with TVETs. A very brilliant idea, because we have seen young people go through the school and they get skills, actually hard skills, technical skills, which they're supposed to, of course, contribute to the economy of this country, because you're supposed to, we have plumbers, we have artisans, technicians, we have electrical engineers, you know, and whatnot. Now, if we look at these things keenly, if we dot the I's and cross all the T's, you realize that in this country, the greatest problem we have is how the government is supposed to create a transitional plan for those students coming from these institutions. You know, sometimes you might be able to manufacture graduates, but where do you take them?
Okay. Because, and it's good that you've mentioned that this problem we're facing is not necessarily a direct consequence of a new administration. That the fact that our successive administrations have been looking towards vocational training did not start with this administration, because even the NYS goes through a lot of that training. So is it a gap in our education system, Asab, that many graduates, and the president of KUSO here says that yes, many graduates will be churned out even at the end, even today at the University of Nairobi, but their expectation is totally different. The kind of jobs they are looking for and what this economy needs are not in congruence. Is it our problem in as far as our education system is concerned?
Perhaps, you know, as I said earlier, you know, it's a doctrine which we adopted from the system, which we learned through. Yeah, there is the 844 system. The governments, you know, have come up with policies, and the policies were to close the gap which exists, yeah, between the graduate coming out of the university and the job market. And when they realized that we're having many unemployed youths, they placed, they put in place policies. But the problem was the implementation of the same policies, you know. Because as Manyara mentioned, the 2030 policy, which was, structured during the Kibaki's time, it has not gotten enough implementation, because we are almost close to that than when it was structured. But we've seen less implementation on the same. But my point, I will still mention that, you know, the current regime, you know, are embracing the TVET institutions the teachings of the indoctrination of the skills to the students coming out or graduating out of these institutions, to have skills for them to go and do the work which pertains to the skills, you know. And when the President William Ruto mentioned about you know, works being created through the housing program, we have artisans, we have plumbers, we have electricians who came out of the TVETs institutions. And as I mentioned earlier again, the industrial parks being established in each and every county in Kenya right now, between this period of 5 years of President William Ruto, it will also create employment, not the white-collar employment, but we call the manual intensified jobs, which we need. And also, they have encouraged many parastatals, especially the Ministry of Roads, that when they're doing the works when they're doing like road works, they employ the labor intensive approach where youth will get employment.
But that is not the kind. But that's not the kind of jobs Kenyan youth want. And Rachel, you said that they have a right to be that choosy. But if they fail to take up these jobs that are available, yes, we may call it mjengo. But if at all the government has come up with a policy on nationwide housing developments, if you say that Kenyan youth have a right to choose not to take up such opportunities, then where will they turn to if at all these white-collar jobs are not available?
I believe that a government is a body that is there, elected, to represent the Kenyan, to represent the Kenyan youth. And by representation is by ensuring that everything is in place, not just by formalities and promises. So if a Kenyan youth, for example, has gone to school, like Asab said, follow the 844 system to acquire some skills, not only in TVETs but in university, for like 6 years, let's say, to take a degree home. But then you tell that Kenyan youth, the only job that is available for you is the mjengo. The only job that is available for you, actually, the only opportunity that we have for you, it's to give you fertilizer. Did I tell you that I came to school to go back to my father's land to do farming? Did I tell you that my father had a land, actually? You understand? Like, let's get our priorities right as the government. Can they come up with policies to expand on, let's say, on industrialization, let's say, for example, the parastatals? Can they get to know the people are occupying the position there already? Because the youth are complaining that even when we go to seek for jobs, even when we go to apply for the jobs, the offices are occupied already by other people. I have a degree, for example, and I've been outside for like, let's say 2 years or 3 years, others even 10 years, they're just outside. So that shows already that the priorities are not gotten right. So even though we would like to complain because of the high cost of living, I don't know what and what, it's a right of the Kenyan youth to access good employment. Otherwise, let them scrap off education.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting assertion there. And this takes me to page... I saw a story on education here, and the fact that even the loans, the uptake of the loans is not as expected. And I'm not sure if it was on the Standard or the Daily Nation this morning.
Page 4.
Daily Nation, page?
4.
Page 4. How come I'm not seeing it? No, it's not on page 4 because I do have... it was on the Standard, yes. And on the Standard, page 4, yes, despite extension, few students seeking loans. So only about 23,000 more students in universities and technical colleges have applied in past 2 weeks. This is despite the 30-day extension on those who are eligible for this government funding through loans, bursaries, or scholarships to apply for them to be able to join universities. with the new university funding model. You represent the students, and when you find that a huge number of people who are eligible to join universities or other institutions of tertiary education are opting not to, they've not been denied a scholarship, they've not been denied a loan, they've not been denied a bursary, but they opt not to apply for them. Most of these have already said they're not able to sponsor their own education. Why do you think this is happening?
Thank you so much. I think, let me begin by saying, first of all, the education plan that is there, which was proposed the other day by the Ministry of Education, by the Working Party for Educational Reforms, it is very unsustainable, very unsustainable. I will say that because it is not inspiring. It doesn't inspire even students. Students who come from high schools, fresh from high schools, to get the universities. Why? If you make, there are some things which are called bottlenecks. For instance, if you want to import some goods from another country, then you bring them to this country, or maybe vice versa. There are things we call bottlenecks. A very cumbersome process. It's just like the way tendering processes, or rather how institutions does. It's a rigorous process which has a lot of bureaucracy and so forth. This process for applying for government sponsorship, or you may call them bursaries, or you may call them even help, it is becoming very cumbersome, very complex, even for a student to understand, even for a parent to understand. Now, when a country implements a policy which is meant for the public, it should be easy, understandable, should not be complicated, very easy to understand. But for this one, it is complex. Why? First of all, they introduce some terms. They say we will fund students who are unable to pay school fees, who are needy, and there are those who are less needy, and there are those who are vulnerable. I mean, how do you differentiate those three kind of people? You know, you cannot just judge a student who is walking down there in the university. You see someone dressed in a suit, and then you see me in a t-shirt, and then you see another student maybe with torn clothes, and then you just differentiate those people by how they look. Now, of course, they introduce something, means instrument, to see how your income, your parents, blah, blah, blah. But those are very complex kind of structures. I would have actually preferred what was there before. Now, when you talk about that also, even what KUSO is doing, trying, of course, to place students. You say you have been working very hard in high school. You want to do a course in medicine, and then you get an airplane, and then they call you maybe to do actuarial science, to do something. It is not motivating at all. Personally, I'll tell you this. People have dreams. They want to achieve those dreams. How can you achieve them? First of all, choice. The course that you want to do. You pursue it, you get it. Whatever choices you had, people have been given choices. Choice number 1, choice number 2, choice number 3, national, these big universities, then you place extra something. All these choices that you made, they should be able to be followed. Sio serikali inasema ati because of diversity, because of trying to see how we can place students from all over. You apply in the University of Nairobi, having gotten an A, and then you're thrilled to another. I cannot, of course, give an example of a bad university since I represent them all, but I can say this. There are some students who are very brilliant. They get very disappointed and very depressed when they are called by the KUSO placed in a university they don't want, or rather a course that they don't want, and so forth. But then let me comment about HELB. Right now, students, even as per yesterday, if the CS for education is watching, he knows very well we talked yesterday. I also talked to the CEO for HELB. Right now, there is a big group of students. I think around 11 batches for the kind of data I was collecting. These students have not been paid. Now we are looking at a government which is proposing a very good plan for students, Yet, they cannot even initiate this process in a smooth manner. We want to see how you can be able to inspire students to study. Remember, these are students, first of all, they are joining university, their parents are broke, the economy is bad, they don't have pocket money, they are also broke in the university. Now, they don't have accommodation. Mm-hmm. If they have accommodation, the university is expecting them to pay a lot of money. Remember, these are issues way before students could demonstrate to have those things returned. Mm-hmm. But we are seeing progressively from the government of Uhuru Kenyatta, the last term, and even now William Ruto, they have been suppressing the voices of students for a long time. They have introduced Universities Amendments Act, which suppress the voices of students. How do students elect themselves nowadays? Through electoral voting, electoral college.
And we'll come to that issue about student representation and whether or not they're able to fight for themselves.
Let me complete for help. Uh-huh. Now, our request is this. There's something also you mentioned about housing, but we have a partnership with the Ministry of Housing to see how we can be able to bring affordable, in the big affordable housing plan, how we can be able to incorporate universities' accommodation plan. Okay. Now, for help, let me say we are not comfortable. And next week, if the students are not, will not have been paid, then we call for nationwide demonstrations for all students in the country.
That is something we are yet to see, because there have been accusations about how lethargic, how blasé the current student leadership is handling student matters. But before we come back to that, this issue of that is on page 4 of the Standard, the fact that many people are not even applying for this funding. That means about 37,000 students eligible to join universities are not interested in those loans, meaning that about 37,000 young Kenyans may not join universities after all. 73,000 eligible to join TVETs and other colleges have not applied for this funding. Remember, there's no direct government subsidy for any tertiary institution. There's about 110,000, yes, people who would join universities or institutions of tertiary education who right now are at risk of not transitioning to that area. What kind of risk are we looking at? If at all we saw 7,000 people and it was a national crisis, these are 110,000 young Kenyans who are to join colleges, but they're not interested in joining.
I mean, I don't wanna. I mean, guess it, but first, you know, the structure which was, drawn by the task force from the Ministry of Education, that was appointed by the president, and they gave the new structure of allocation, or rather the grants going to the university, was perhaps a task force which did a good job, you know. We were having a lot of loans from the universities. There are certain universities, including the University of Nairobi, who were having debts, you know, which they could not cover it, and the same system was not sustainable. Way back in 2018, the Catholic University of East Africa, that is in Karen, and the Presbyterian University were warned of being closed up because of the debts and the way of unable to run itself. The new regime came up with a solution of tackling this, and they found out that, you know, students have, there is a new, line on the university allocation when it comes to funding of the students and the funding of the university. There is the day-to-day activities in the university and the students' grants. They introduced the three categories, or rather four, which are the most vulnerable students get 100% scholarship from the government. There are those who will get up to 90, I think, and then
93%.
Yeah, 93%, and downwards, you know. So, you know, being a new thing, it may not be embraced immediately, and there is the number of students who never embraced. As my colleague explained, the president for KUSO explained that, you know, it is a complex thing. I remember when I was joining university, and I will agree with him that the system was very transparent and easy, you know. You just apply through the KUSO and get a grant of a certain percent. But now this one needs a lot of awareness, you know. The government has to make, to answer that, you know. There are areas which the government has to work on.
Yes.
And that one includes...
is one of them.
Yeah.
It is a direct consequence of this transition period that I'm more concerned about. The fact that, yes, last year transition happened. Next year probably things will be better and there'll be a better transition.
Can I add?
But this year, 100,000 people who are to join tertiary institutions might not be able to do. The direct consequence of that, what will that mean to Kenya or to this particular group of people in a few years to come?
I would say, you know, there is a say in my community which says, you know, it goes that when a lion lacks meat, it will feed on the grass. I mean, I don't want to presume, but it might be in some point, youths are seen like, you know, you have to pursue a certain cause, and eventually these people who are in the field...
That course you're talking about is what I'm interested in.
Yeah,
what will happen?
Okay, so they might have, decided to go on the agricultural way, yeah, which has been encouraged through the subsidies in the production, as Rachael had mentioned. So my point is that it's a mixture. Even though it is an area to check on, it might be people have taken a different trajectory.
Okay.
And especially on the carpentry, you know, when the president mentioned about, you know, unatengeneza kitu na unauza, you know, some people might have taken that trajectory. But my point now, my concern is that, you know, in some future time, that there is a gap already. You know, the government introduced the CBC during the whole regime. The CBC, because they saw a gap that exists, and they introduced the CBC. So these are the consequences which we're getting in that same gap, and perhaps it is hard to tackle it.
Because my issue is the education system is a transition. It is the conduit between the youth and the economy. That you go through the education system, either through TVETs, either through universities, or any other institution, and the skills you gain, that is how you end up in the cycle that we call the economy building. Now, when you have 100,000 people who fail to go either through TVETs or any other colleges by choice, they've refused to apply for these loans. I doubt that most of them will be able to pay or sponsor their own education, even through university. Then you have a group that is not ready for the economy and is not ready for education. What happens?
What happens is increased crime, whether we like it or not. In the nearest future, we might not have a Kenya to be proud of. We might also face brain drain in our country, because this youth might consider going maybe abroad for education, you know, and that will cost us as a country. It shows that in the nearest future, we might not have doctors. In the nearest future, we might not have qualified teachers. the nearest future, we might not have journalists. Because if this youth who was qualified in the high school to join university or college to pursue some, to pursue a degree or a diploma, let's not talk too much about TVETs and agriculture and fertilizer. We cannot be in a, we're now approaching Vision 2030, but we're still talking about agriculture. Agriculture is something to embrace, yes. But then
it is a backbone of our economy.
Exactly, it is a backbone, but we have to balance. You can have food, but you don't have the healthcare, accessible healthcare. You can have food, but you do not have a teacher tomorrow. You can have food in your table, but you don't know what is going on in your country because you don't have a journalist. We need to balance this as a country. And my friend said that, when lion lacks meat, they would resort to grass. That is true, but then this grass might kill the lion. We need to get our priorities right. We need to make things, education accessible as we make the agriculture, the fertilizer accessible. We need to understand that what was happening before, when we used to have teachers, when we used to have qualified pilots, it's still going to happen. And we are moving, we are evolving. We are not where we were 10 decades ago. We are moving, so we need to embrace progress. We need to embrace growth. So for me, I'd say the government has to get the things right, because what I'm seeing now, it's misplaced priorities. They are forcing things on us. We are waking up to proposed policies that make sense a bit, but do not make sense to the new generation. Okay. And when you say, what you can see here, over 10,000, let's say, youth who might not join the university, we don't know what they're gonna do back there. Maybe some would do the farming, they're saying, some would do just the normal, the obvious. Okay. But then, those who had a dream, those who had a vision to build our country, where do we place those? And we'll have crime in our country, and we will not be able to tame those. You cannot tame a person who is, first of all, is hungry in the stomach. Okay. That person might make wrong decisions. As they say, when the poor lack something to eat, they might eat the rich. That is exactly what they mean, because the kids of the rich might access education, but the kids of the poor might not access education. And it's not by being biased, but the kids of the poor, most of the times, are very dedicated, because they are, they have a drive, they have a reason to study, they have a reason to make it, and those are the brilliant minds back there. So why are we wasting the brains that we have in our country?
Okay.
Let me leave it at that point.
Okay, Anthony, the kind of criticism that has come directed towards the current student leadership is justified to some extent. The political leaders even we see currently in our country stemmed or started their agitation from the level of university student leadership. That even in matters politics, the agitation for multipartism, the second liberation, it was mainly driven to a huge extent by people who had come through university student leadership. They went out to the streets, they fought not just for themselves and their universities, they fought even for this country, for the community beyond the institutions they represent. Now, they say that nothing is given on a silver platter, and the criticism towards the current youth is that they are sitting back and waiting for things to be given to them. And when this government or this community or this society fails to do that, the youth are not able to fight for themselves. Now, you are a leader elected by university students to represent them. How come the university leadership or the student community is unable, when you so clearly say that this is unfair to us, whatever the government has come up with cannot work for us, it is unfair? How come then again we are seeing the university leadership or the university student leadership just sit back and wait for things to change?
Friend, I think that's a fair question. Let me first of all begin by also informing you that I'm also the president for all university students, not just in Kenya, but also in East Africa, which means 7 countries. And I can tell you for free, the model of leadership in those other countries is not the same with Kenya. Around 5 countries, they do elections, by popular suffrage. In Kenya, before 2017, elections were done by universal suffrage. Nowadays, what we see in these universities, there's a bill which was introduced by Duale, and it suppressed the voices of students. Because right now, a student leader is elected. How is that student leader elected? Students elect at campus level, or rather small structures. If I may use University of Nairobi as an example, they have colleges, around 13 colleges, if you include Odell and maybe the satellite campuses. And they elect a team of around 36, because 13 times 3, I think that is 36. Now those 36, they are the ones who are elected democratically. Now these 36, you never know, they might be influenced by the institution, administration, to elect a certain person who is to represent all the students. Another scenario might come. Nowadays, we have seen universities introduce online voting. Well, in as much as it works, maybe in the US, these are third world country, we are still developing. It's not possible to entirely rely on online issues to determine the outcome of an election. Now, it is nearly impossible for a single student whose votes have been stolen to go to the courts, hire a lawyer, and compete against an administration which can be able, has a lot of resources on their hands. They can hire the best lawyers, maybe to go in court, that court battle.
Let me get you clear. Are you saying that most of the university student leadership is illegitimate because probably of influence by the university leadership?
Speaking from my position, I'll tell you this. We have student leaders currently who are not supposed to be student leaders, because the administration identifies a certain students. They have laws which, and by the way, leaders are not very smart. I will tell you that for free. Students who have solutions for other students in the universities, they are not very academically brilliant. Some of them go, even in high school, they get C's, they get... Have you ever seen this kind of analysis that goes around that says that B students do work for C students, do A students work for, I don't know, like that. You have seen, right? Now, in our universities nowadays, it is discipline, that's a requirement, which is understandable. Then they put academics. And they put, you're not supposed to have had, I don't know, supplementaries. I don't know, you're not supposed to, a lot of...
As a qualification for a student
for you
leadership.
vying.
Yes.
And I find that very unfair because, and then again also, money. If you're broke, you're not supposed really to even contemplate of becoming a student leader, because those 36 delegates, or even in another institution, if there are some institutions like TUK, there are more than 100 delegates. How will you satisfy all those?
So you do agree that the student leadership, either because of illegitimacy or other reasons, has failed the youth? So you agree in general to my supposition that the youth in Kenya are sitting back, waiting for everything to be handed to them, and they're not willing to go out and fight for it?
People are angry. They are not. We cannot say like they are just sitting because of their own volition. They are sitting back because the government has denied them those rights. Not just this government. This started with the government of Uhuru Kenyatta. Now, right now, I have around 13 petitions, which I've done to the National Assembly, to see how we can be able to overturn the Duale bill so that we can bring back the universal suffrage thing. It has not happened.
Wow.
We normally face a lot of challenges from the Education Committee in the National Assembly, from the ministry itself, from the Vice Chancellor's Committee. They don't want that to happen. Why? Because when you have legitimate student leaders there, they'll be able even to check how you're managing finances for their students. Okay. They'll be able to check, they'll be able to do a lot of checks. But as I conclude on that issue, let me say we'll not get tired. This government, I have seen the president is a little bit, he really understands what democracy means. We'll be able to appeal to him again. We want to see how he can be able to listen to the cries of these students so that they can be able to do elections democratically as he also benefited from that kind of democratic process.
If at all the Kenyan youth is not able to stand up for themselves, do you think that the rest of society is keen? Because everyone is fighting for their own. If at all you're not able to stand up for yourself, who will do it for you? Do you agree that the lethargy from the point of the youth themselves is a problem, and not necessarily these other issues that, of course, governments will come and they'll have challenges. Cost of living will rise and fall. But if at all the youth of Kenya are not able to fight for themselves, isn't that part of the problem and probably part of the bigger problem?
You're right. It is a big problem. And I want to say that, you know, the future, which we all know, is vested on the youth. You know, the direction which the country is heading is, the whole trust is on the youth. We used to say when, myself, I was in the university in 2021, and we used to say, you know, we have to fight for our space. Mm-hmm. And there is nothing for us without us in the table. We must fight, and myself and other comrades, you know, and other student leaders, and I was once a student leader in African Nazarene University. And we encouraged ourselves that we need to try to fight for our space, because no one will fight for you if you're not included in that table. Mm-hmm. So I want to urge and support what Manyara mentioned. We need a vibrant, active youth community, and it is the same. It is established, especially in the higher learning, higher education. Higher institutions of learning, such as the universities, because all these leaders, when you see them, they are once student leaders. And when we vied for, myself, I vied for MP, and I was urging the youth to support me, because I was gonna fight for them. And sometimes the challenge is within the youth themselves. Mm-hmm. They don't embrace a fellow youth. When it comes to the financial muscles, you are ousted in a field where you cannot feed your fellow youth.
But we have a number of youth in parliament this time round, and they are not necessarily representing what the youth need in this country. Probably that's part of the problem, that you may tell us you're going to parliament to represent the youth, but once you get there, you're gobbled up by the rest of the politicians and you forget what you had promised.
I will support what Manyara said, that we need to have a vibrant voting system in the universities, where we can get to establish leadership of a country. Because when you see the likes of Orengo, they were once student leaders. The likes of Ruto William, he was a student leader in UN. Bihita, CU, there's a leadership as well. So my point, you know, the youths who are there in the parliament, I dare say, I haven't seen any who was a student leader.
Is it that
Manyara
Manyara
can
that
agree with
we, even as a
that.
society, we are no longer believing in this youth myth anymore, that the promise had always been elect young people, they will do this, do this. The youth themselves cannot even fight for their own issues. How will they go to fight for me in parliament? If at all, even at the university level, they are not even able to agitate for what they really need. 100,000 people are not able to join colleges. They are not even able to fight for that. What is this that will convince the rest of Kenya that youth is actually a solution to anything?
Mm-hmm. Tabitha, you see, for the youth to convince the people that they really need to be heard, it's by them taking an initiative, themselves, us, we. If something doesn't please us as the youth, whether a policy, a new bill, a new model, anything. We have to seek the diplomatic ways to address this issue. And if the diplomatic ways don't work, we have to do the protest way. But now I'm blaming ourselves, the youth. As much as the government is not doing the right thing, and the opposition is doing also their thing, the youth, what are we doing? We wake up to a new funding model and everything is normal. The business is running as usual. We call them for maybe, we did the diplomatic way, of course, but it failed terribly. And the new model was passed anyways, so no comrade is out here to do demonstrations. Okay, their leader has been calling them anyways. I don't know how he's doing it, but no one is coming. I have done it also in...
Do they still deserve to be called comrades? Because comrades in what?
The comrades' power is dying, but also as it is dying, it's because of the dual bill that suppress it. But I believe a person who is passionate into achieving something will not look at the setbacks. Mm-hmm. They will focus on the end goal of this. I believe that by the Azimio demonstrations, the youth should be influenced enough to come out and ask for their rights, whether through protest. I know they are afraid that the police might kill them, but then to achieve something, someone must, well, not die, but someone must sacrifice for something. Yes. When you look at the history of our country, we've achieved some good things like the new constitution, the multi-party democracy that is at stake right now, because where we're going to, it might go back to one-partyism and all that. And all that was achieved by people who went, even the Kenya's democracy, our forefathers fought for it. They were never given it by the white people. So it shows that for us as the youth of today, we have our generation mandate, and we are failing the generation. We are failing this generation and the incoming generation by being quiet and agreeable to everything. We have the 10% of the youth who are willing to go to the streets or to do whatever it takes to achieve something. But then we have the 90% who have given up. Well, as I blame us, I also blame the government. We have given up for reasons because maybe I could be very hungry in the stomach, I'm very depressed. But then you find that there is a lot of talking. There is a lot of tweeting. You are tweeting protest in your bedroom. You are TikToking yes. Protest, you know. I urge the youth, let's come out. For me, I'm very willing, I'm ever willing. For those who know me, I'm at the front line of the Azimio protest as the girl over there for that Jeshi la Baba. And we are willing to take whatever it takes for our country. So let me be brief for the interest of the time. But yes. What I want to say is, the youth, we must do the 50% okay. For them to take us serious. Because
of time, I'll give each one of you about a minute to give your final comments on this issue. Remember, youth make up about 80% of Kenya's population below 35 years. That's between the ages of 18 and 35. That's a definition of Kenyan youth. 80% of Kenya's population. And it is very interesting. So even as we wrap up this discussion, final sentiments.
Well, mine, I will just say that if you lock a pastor and a prostitute in the same room for a long time, one is likely to convert the other. Now, if we look at the situation in our country at the moment, looking at our government which is flaunting, politicians spending a lot of taxpayers' money on irrelevant causes, on things that are very unnecessary. We are seeing looting right, left, and center, embezzlement of public funds. In the same country, we have a wide lot of unemployed people. Let me tell you, that is a time bomb. We are looking at a scenario whereby itafika mahali, even these youth will be able to say enough is enough. Look at the students that I represent. Some of them are frying rats, others are hunting birds. Okay. Some are keeping meals. We want to see how the government can be able to look ahead. How can they look ahead? First of all, they see how they can be able to create more job opportunities. Okay. Now, I also say this about the voice suppression about students. KUSO has remained as the only organization in the whole country which is very fearless. It is non-partisan, by the way. And we are representing students' interests boldly. bila kuogopa. For those who have seen, we have been behind very many demonstrations, and we want to see how we can be able to face the government head on, to see on what matters we can collaborate on very good plans. Okay. And then issues that they have not done, then we are able also to follow up. Okay. But then on the plans zile zenye wamekuwa kileta kama hiyo ya CBC and education reforms, the only problem we had is public participation. KUSO gave its recommendations, but very few, actually almost negligible, were factored in. We want to see a country in which mambo ya wanafunzi also listen to that, those students first before you impose policies on them, because they are the end user, they are the people on the receiving end of those policies. Okay, thank you. Asab, briefly.
Maybe mine to conclude with, I mean, I want to urge the great youth of this country to be more vigilant and not to fall in any, wind of political doctrine, especially when such winds are nothing more than self-serving tables, which their main goal is the aggrandizement of their political, space, or rather barriers. Okay. Yeah.
Finally, Tabitha, you get to wrap it up for us.
So whoever laughs first, last laughs the best, or what? How do they put it? So my colleagues have talked about the youth coming out and all that, job opportunities and all that. That is quite good. So I'd not wish to repeat on the youth. I'd go to the government. The government of the day has to get things right. They have to get things right. And this is not a threat. It's just as it is. If they don't get the things right, the things might get them right. So we urge them to go back to the drawing table and ensure that whatever policies they are coming with, they are of the best of the Kenyan youth. Because for real, the youth are hurting. The youth lack job employment. The youth cannot access better health care. The youth are suffering mental health. The youth are committing suicide. The youth are stuck in debt. The youth are hopeless. In a country where we have hopeless youth, it's a country that is killing its own future. So let them do something, but then moving forward, if nothing is done, then the better way to say this is that the wind will blow and the backside of the chicken will be exposed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachael Tabitha, National Youth Advocate, Asab Cheruiyot, lawyer and analyst, and Anthony Manyara, President, Kenya University Students Organization. Our panelists this morning on the youth perspective. Remember our question this morning. Are Kenyan youth too choosy when it comes to employment opportunities? And you can continue interacting with us on our social media handles. But now, ladies and gentlemen, you'll allow me to read this editorial comment as we come to the end of this session. Now, civil society organizations and workers' unions have long been regarded as the guardians of public interest, stepping in when politicians fail to prioritize the welfare of the general public. These groups play a crucial role in advocating for the rights and well-being of citizens, holding governments accountable, and ensuring that the needs of the people are met. However, the recent causing up of these organizations with the Kenyan government raises important questions about their commitment to their fundamental roles. Civil society organizations in Kenya, once a vibrant force for change, seem to have lost their vigor in the face of a worsening cost of living crisis. The question that arises is whether their apparent silence is an abdication of their role in advocating for the people. Similarly, workers' unions have traditionally been the voice of employees, negotiating for better wages, working conditions, and benefits. However, when unions align themselves closely with the government, as appears to be the case, they may inadvertently become complicit to policies that harm their own members, such as high taxation on workers. Now, supporting everything the government does without due scrutiny and negotiation can undermine the very purpose of workers' unions. When unions prioritize a cozy relationship with the government over advocating for the needs of their members, they risk losing their credibility and effectiveness as advocates for workers' rights. Yes, It is essential for these groups to engage constructively with the government. It is equally